Okay, so good morning, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. So, I would like to take a moment to greet each and everyone for joining us today for a Saturday Learning. So, first of all, let me tell you what is the Saturday Learning. So, it is an event organized by the Mindbowser, and this event is held once a month where our team shares their new learnings on various topics from different tech stacks, and I highly encourage you all to stay tuned on LinkedIn and other social media platforms for regarding the future events updates. Okay, so now before we deep dive into the today's webinar, React unit testing with Jest, I kindly request you all to wait for just a few minutes. I guess we have few more attendees who are joining us shortly, and we want to ensure that everyone gets the opportunity to be a part of this insightful session. Okay, so while we wait, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Nadeem Khan, a software engineer working as a front-end developer at Mindbowser for last 2 years. So throughout my career, I had privilege of working in a different domains such as healthcare, edtech, and CRM. So Sanket, please take a moment to introduce yourself.
So hi guys, my name is Sanket Kardika. I'm a full stack developer at Mindbowser and looking forward to share my experience about Jest and React. That's it.
Uh, okay, well, Okay, without a further ado, let's get started with our webinar on the React unit testing with Jest. Before starting this session, guys, I have few questions for you. So you can put the answers in the Q&A on the chat section. So do you guys have experience with unit testing in general? Okay. So here is my another question. Have you used Jest for the unit testing Reacts before? Uh, you can put your answers in the comment section, in the chat section, guys. Okay, okay. Well, have you used any other testing frameworks or library beside the Jest? Okay, yes. Okay, so overall, it seems that you guys don't have much knowledge regarding the unit testing and the Jest. That's actually awesome because we have designed this session in such a way that fresher can also take the benefit of this session. So we will start from the start, guys. Don't worry. Change the slide. Okay, so today's session is all about React unit testing with Jest. Next, yeah. So let's start from the overview of today's session. So first we will see what is testing. Then we will see the different approaches of testing. Then we will see the introduction to Jest. Then we will see the comparison between the Jest and the other testing libraries. Then we will see what and what not to test while writing the unit test cases in Jest for the React application. Then we will see the implementation of Jest in the React.js. Then we will see the advantages and the limitation of Jest. And at the end, we have the quiz section also, and winners will also get the prize and certification. Okay, next. Okay, so let's start from our first point. What is testing? Okay. So testing is important for ensuring that software works as intended and meets the requirement and standards. So before starting of any software application, we have our requirements and standards. So in order to ensure that we are fulfilling those requirements and standards, we do testing. Okay. So here basically you can see. Yes. Here you can see the simple flow of the testing. So first we have our application code and we write the test cases. Okay. And here doesn't matter we are writing the test in which approach, whether it's automated or the manual. Eventually our test will get pass or fail. So if our test will get pass, we simply release our code to the production, and if it gets fail, then simply refactor or debug our code and again test our code. So this is a simple flow diagram of testing. Okay, now let's see the different approaches of testing. Next. Okay, so here mainly we have two approaches of testing, manual and automated. So let's try to understand both of these approaches with the help of simple example. Suppose you have a function, right? And function takes the argument and apply some operation, perform some operation on it, and return the result, right? And if you are testing that function through the manual approach, all you have to do is, first you need to launch your application, then perhaps you have to log in if you have the authentication flow, then you have to click here and there, that's we call navigation, then we have to fill out the form, then submit the form, then finally we test our function is working properly or not. Okay, and each and every time if you want to test our application with the different arguments, we need to follow these steps again and again. So manual testing involves the human tester running the various test cases to validate the program's functionality. On the other hand, automated testing is a practice of writing code to test our code and then running those tests in the automated fashion. So I'm just giving the basic idea. The exact syntax you are going to see in the implementation details. So here what we simply do, we call our application by passing the argument, and we perform the assertion against the desired output. If we get the desired output, if our result is equal to the desired output, simply our test will get passed, or if we are not getting the desired output, our test will get fail. Okay, so this code we only have to write once, and in future, after refactoring, after adding the new feature, whenever we are curious about our previous functionality that is working previously is currently working or not, we simply have to run a simple command in our terminal to check whether previous functionality or the pure test cases is working properly or not. And have you ever been in a situation when you're done with your task, and you just push the code to the production and you leave the office, and you thinking that everything is working fine on the production, and after some time you got a call from your boss or the end user that one of the major functionality of the code or application is not working. So again you have to come back to the office, and you find that that was a quick fix, but it ended up you have to stay in the office until the midnight. So this such type of problem can be resolved if you write unit test cases for your application. Again, I'm not saying that with the help of unit test casing you are going to release the bug free application. No, that's not possible. But yeah, you can reduce the number of bugs by using the unit test cases. Next. Okay, let's see the different approaches of the automated testing, or the different types of automated testing. So first type we have here is the unit testing, and with the Jest we can only cover the unit test cases. Okay, so unit testing is a software testing method that focuses on verifying the functionality of individual unit or a module of a program, typically at the function or a class level, through the use of the automated test. So in a simple word, we can say that in a unit testing, we test the single unit of our application without their external dependencies. You can see in this diagram, this circle is my test coverage area. So inside my test coverage area, I only have the unit of my single unit of my code, right? And all the other dependencies are out of this area. So I don't have to take care about while writing the unit test cases, I don't have to take care about the other dependencies. I only have to write the test cases for the single unit of my application. Next. Yeah. So next is integration testing. So this is another type of the automated testing. So integration testing is a software testing approaches that validates the interaction and the compatibility between the different components, modules, or system within an application. Again, in simple word, we can say that the integration testing is a testing of the component, module, or a single unit of your application with their external dependencies. Okay, and that you can see in this diagram. Then next is the end-to-end testing. So end-to-end testing is a software application testing, is a comprehensive testing methodology that validates the functionality, performance, and the reliability of a system as a whole. Next. Okay, so here we have the test pyramid. So what is the test pyramid? Test pyramid is a conceptual framework that is used to guide the creation of the automated testing strategy. So here are some of my personal takeaways from this test pyramid is we should always favor the unit test cases to end-to-end test, because unit test cases are faster to run and cheapest to write. And the another advantage of writing unit test cases is it the unit test cases will always give you the rapid feedback. Okay, then you should always cover the test gaps with the integration testing. So these are some of my personal takeaways from this test pyramid. So yeah, this is all about this test pyramid. Okay, now let's see what is Jest. So Jest is a well-known JavaScript library, and it is created by the Facebook. So this is a, one of the main advantage of using Jest with the React application, because both React and Jest are the product of Facebook, right? So it provides a good integration support with the React, and it is intended to be quick and simple to use. Just provide a full testing experience for the JavaScript projects. It can be used for the testing Node.js apps, React application, and other JavaScript projects. So Jest is not only used for testing the React application. We can also test the Node.js and the other JavaScript based projects based on our requirements. So let's see the testing cycle of Jest. So here you can see the testing cycle of Jest. First, we have our application code, and we after writing the code for our main functionality, we write the test cases. Okay, and after the writing test cases, we simply execute those test cases, right? And this part you will see in the implementation details more details. Now just try to understand the simple flow of the testing, how basically how the flow works, like while writing the test cases for the React application in Jest. So we add a test, then execute the test. So after execution on the terminal, we can see that our whether our test is get fail or pass. So if our test get pass, again we come back to the first step and adding more test cases. And in case our test get fail, so we have to do the refactoring or the debugging or make change in our code. After the refactoring or debugging, again we have to execute the test. Okay, so now if our test get passed, again we have to come back to the first step and add more test cases. And if our test get fail, again we have to come back to the third step where we refactor or debug our code. So this is a simple flow diagram of the test. Yeah, so here you can see that we have compared Jest with the other popular testing libraries. So this comparison will give you the understanding when and why you should use Jest. Okay, so first is the easy setup. So Jest come up with the easy setup. On the other hand, Jasmine and Mocha requires the manual setup that is time consuming. Then the snapshot testing. So the snapshot testing is basically useful when you want to make sure that your UI does not changes unexpectedly. Okay, so this functionality is built in the Jest. On the other hand, we don't have this functionality in the Jasmine and Mocha. Next is the code coverage. So this is another function. This is another functionality of the Jest, where we can easily generate the coverage report and see how much percentage of our code is covered with the test cases. So it's integrated in the Jest. On the other hand, in Jasmine, we require the additional configuration, and in the Mocha, we have support the coverage with plugins. Again, we need the extra plugins for generating the code coverage in Mocha. Then the mocking. So whenever we want to test the API calls, so we need to mock the API uh, API execution and the different functions. So this functionality is also built in the Jest, and in Jasmine also it's available, but in the Mocha it requires the additional library. Now, talking about the test performance, Jest is a fast and optimized. On the other hand, Jasmine depends on the implementation, and in case of Mocha, it also depends on the implementation. Next is very important, community support, because whenever we get stuck anywhere, we need a community support for help. So yeah, all these three libraries are very famous in terms of their downloads. So yeah, all these three libraries have the large and the active community support. Then next is the framework focuses. So Jest primarily for developed for the React and the Next.js application, and Jasmine is used for the Jasmine is better suited for the Node.js application. On the other hand, Mocha works better with the Angular.js. Then talking about the application type, so Jest is a good choice if you are making the powerful UI based application. On the other hand, Mocha is suitable for the complex backend application, and on the other hand, Jasmine is suitable for the complex backend application, and the Mocha is works better with the light and the simple projects. Then the assertion library. So assertion is basically the functionality which allows to check whether our test is our test result is our test result is right or wrong. Okay, so it's basically provide us checking. So in the Jest we have the built-in assertion library, and in Jasmine we need the external libraries for the assertion, and in the Mocha also it is available. The assertion library is available. So this is the quick comparison between the Jest with the other two libraries. Yeah, so here you can see the downloadings of a Jest versus other testing libraries, Mocha and Jasmine. So here we can see that the Jest have the more number of downloads than the Mocha and Jasmine. Yeah, that's an interesting question. What to test? So I can tell you from my example that initially when I started writing the test cases, after knowing about Jest, how I can write the test cases in Jest and how I can mock the functions, how I can test the user interaction. The first question come into my mind is what to test, because there is too many thing in my code, right? And it doesn't mean that we have to test each and everything. That's useless. That's time consuming, right? So let's see what we should test. So we should always test the component render. In React, we have a component. So first of all, we should simply check whether our component is rendering properly or not. Okay. Then we should test component renders with props. Then we should test the component renders in the different states. And then we should test the components react to the event, right? Suppose you are making the component of form, so every form must have the submit button. So you should check after clicking on the submit button your form is submitting properly or not. So these are some basic points about what to test. Yeah, this is also important. What not to test. Okay, so we should not test the implementation details. We should not test the third party libraries, as third party libraries are already tested by their developer, and we should not test the code that is not important from the user's point of view. Let's see the installation of a Jest. So it's actually very simple. First, you need to create the React project, then open your project root directory in the terminal, then run the following command to install the Jest in its required library as the dev dependencies. So here you need to write npm I hyphen hyphen save hyphen dev, then Jest and the other libraries. Okay, then you should wait for the installation to complete. Then here you can see we have mentioned that hyphen dev. Okay, so we have mentioned this hyphen dev because they are specifically needed for the development environment and not for the production build, right? So no need to pollute your production build with all these testing libraries, right? We only need these testing libraries in our development environment. We write the test cases and we just get confirmed that everything is working properly on the development, and we confidently push our code to the production. Next. Yeah, so let's see the folder structure that you should follow while writing the test cases. So use a test directory for the test in the React project. So you can see that inside the source, inside the component, I have created this test directory. Okay, and create a component directory in the test for the component specific test. Okay, so inside the test I have created this another directory component. So all my testing code related to the any component, like I have the header component, I have the button component, right? All the test related to header and button I will put inside this component directory. Okay, and we use .test.js extension for the testing file, and Jest will automatically run all those files with this extension. Okay, then well structured folder enhance the code readability and the test accuracy. So you have to make sure that your test is well structured so that other developer can easily contribute in the project, right? Okay, so let's start the implementation of Jest in the React JS. So from here, Sanket will tell you about the implementation details. So Sanket, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Nadeem, for explaining basics of unit testing, and the Jest framework. So from now, I will start to tell about the implementation steps which will be required to test the React app. So in every test we write, generally involves the following basic steps. First of all, we render the component. So we virtually render that particular component. Then we find a particular event in the rendered component and assert whether it's available in that component or not. So these are the basic steps involved in testing and component. So next, I will share the demo. So here, as you see, we have prepared a small demo and blog application to demonstrate the Jest testing. So here, as we can see, there are blocks, and from here we can navigate to add post and add a particular post. Here we have an input components. We have applied the validations on it, and it's an file input. And here is a multiple check button. So let's go to the VS Code for the code. So here is an code structure for our blog application. So as we can see in package.json, earlier explained by Nadeem, we have multiple testing libraries installed on the application. We have testing library.js DOM. We have React user events for tracking the events. Next, we have Jest, and one more library, React Redux mock store to mocking for mocking the store. So here in containers folder, we have created the test folder, inside which we have an homepage.test file. While running a test, we need to first of all import some APIs. So here we are importing Fire Event API, Render API, and Screen API from testing library. Next, we are using browser router. I will explain further why we are importing browser router. Next, we are importing that particular component which will be rendered. Next, we have a test function which is globally available. So there is no need to import it. So test function has an contains three parameters. First is the name of that test. Next, it's the function which contains all the tests or assertions we need to test. And last, which is an optional parameter, which is timeout. So here in the function, we have created an array of post data, and we have passed title, image, subtitle, and ID. And then we are rendering, as we earlier said, we have imported that render function from testing library. So here we are rendering that function. So we have wrapped that using browser router, as we are navigating from one slide to another. So we need an wrapper function to be wrapped between that component, and from the post data array we are rendering that particular component multiple times, block card components. So now, so we have rendered a component. Now we need to first fetch the particular element and assert that. So here we have a screen API which will fetch that particular, which will help us to fetch that particular element. So using screen, on screen we have a method called get all by text, and where we can pass a string or else a regex pattern. It's up to you which will help you fast. So here we are passing and date. So as you can see, we have passed it to the block card, and check on that we have an to have length method, where it's checking whether it's having the length of that particular post card data length. So it's checking whether it's rendering two times. Next, again we are also fetching the name Ashish Arora, and checking whether it's available as of the length of that particular array. Same here, we are checking with regex and checking whether it's available on that DOM. Next, we are checking whether all the post data is available on in the DOM. So again, we are fetching the element using screen.get all by API, get all by text, and passing the post title one by one using looping and checking whether it's having length one, means it's available on the DOM or not. Next, we are checking whether uh, we have a method get all by, alt by text. It's by default getting all the elements which is having an alternate attribute. For example, image has an alt attribute. So it's fetching that, and we are getting the zeroth element, the first element from it, and checking whether it's having attribute same src with value same as the post image. So while looping, it's checking whether it's having the same image as we have passed. Next, again, we have basically again we are checking whether the subtitle exists on that particular DOM or not. So this was the first test case we checked, and then next one uh, we have next text case which calls navigation function when button is clicked. So here we are checking whether it's calling the navigation function when the read more button is clicked. So here we are creating a mock function using just.function, and then again we are rendering that particular red button component and passing on click event to that particular uh, the function to that particular component. So here then we are getting that particular component using get by text read more. We are fetching the element, and now we are triggering the fire event which is imported from the React testing library. We are having multiple functions like uh, dot click, dot abort, dot blur, dot call, etc. So here we are firing an on click event using on that particular button, and then asserting if it's getting executed or not. So here we are having the method to have been called. So it will assert whether it's rendering it's getting executed or not. So let's run the test file. So for running the test file, we have command run test npm run test. For running a particular file, we need to add the file name, or else for executing all the test cases in your particular project, we need to just run the command npm run test. So here I'm writing only a particular file name. So as you can see, it's getting running, and you can see the test cases are passed, and the test case name are have been shown in the terminal as render block cards with correct data and calls navigation function when button is clicked. So here you may get confused between test suite. So test suite refers to the available uh, test files in which are getting run executed here. So we are currently only executing homepage.test. So test suite number will be only one. In that we have two tests which are being executed. So now if I change something here, I change a number, it will get re-executed as it's opened in a watch mode, and it will tell that, oh, this test case has been failed, and on this point it's getting failed. So as you can see, it's not matching in the DOM, so it's showing an error in the terminal. So it's better to get an error in terminal rather than on the production. So this was the home page test file. Now we have an component add post. So here we are testing an add post where in the input file or the input tag, etc. So here we have an imports like render, again render API, fire event API, screen API, and we have an component add post. Now we are also uh, importing provider function as it's required if it's wrapped. It's if you are using use selector and you are using Redux, it should that particular component should be wrapped between your provider, and also if you are navigating, it should be wrapped between browser router. Then we have a configure store to mock a particular store, and validate function which is used for validating the email. Next, we have an user event to track that events on click, etc. So here we have describe function. So basically, describe function does what? It will, if you want to run multiple test cases under one name, add post. So it will wrap all the test cases in that, and it will execute it. So describe contains again the name and the function inside which we have multiple test cases. So here we can check add post renders form input. So here we are mocking the store with initial values of users and posts. Then we are passing that particular store to the provider and wrapping it, and inside it we have an add post component. So again we are fetching that particular all the elements like title input, subtitle input, email input, the checkbox also, and we are checking whether it's in the document. Again we have another method to be in the document, so it's checking whether it's in the document or not. So here again it's checking its title input is in the document, subtitle input is in the document or not, email input is in the document or not. Then it's checking whether the checkbox is checked or not. So first of all, when we render the component, by default, the checkbox is unchecked. So it's first checking so that it's unchecked. So it's checking that its value is false to be using the to be method. Next, we are firing an event on click event on that particular checkbox and checking that event. So here we are checking and again checking that it's getting true, its value is true or not, and again we are unchecking it and checking whether its value is false. Then we are fetching the element blog label and file input label. So again we are checking whether it's in the document or not. Then we are creating a file, uh, image file, and firing an event on change to that particular file input and passing the file which we have created here, and again checking whether the passed file is exactly that file which we have passed using two strict equal. So this was the test, first test. Next we are checking update form data on that input on input change. So here we are again mocking the store for that particular test and fetching the title input, firing an input on change event and passing the value, the new title, and checking whether it's available in the DOM or not. Next, we have submit form on button click. So here again we are mocking the store, creating a function handle submit just using just.function, fetching the submit button element and passing the on click event to that handle submit button and triggering the on click event on that submit button and checking whether it has been called or not. So it check whether the function which we have passed to that particular on click event is has been called or not. So again this this is an again the file input test case. Next, we have an email validator. As you can see, we have prepared an mock validator, email validator array of objects where we have an input and that particular output. So here we are looping within it and checking whether and passing that input to email validate. So here we are checking whether that matches to that regex input. So we are passing the input and checking whether that output to be false or true. So here you can see we are you have passed an invalid email IDs first, and then we have passed an valid email ID. So again, let's test, run the test, npm run test. So now the add post file, add post dot test dot js test. Yeah. So as you can see, it's getting executed. So this file contains, this is the one particular file again. So it's showing one test suite, and we have 5 test cases inside it, and it's getting passed. So now, as earlier explained by Nadeem, just also helps us to track our coverage report. So for tracking that particular coverage report, we have to run the command npm test hyphen hyphen again space hyphen hyphen coverage. After entering it, it runs the command, and it gives an report in form of our folder structure. As you can see, this is our folder structure, and the for that particular file, how much percent of that particular file is getting tested in our test cases, it shows. So for the input custom input component, it's 100%. For block card, it's 66%. For some files, it may give zero report, but in general, overall report must be at least 75%, or it depends on the client also. So client will give the percentage. So that's it for the demo, for the test demo. So yeah, this was an implementation demo. Next, we have yes, again we have the commands here: the npm run test file name, and npm test to find test coverage to find the coverage report. So here are some core concepts of Jest. As explained earlier, for fetching an element, there are some matcher functions which has where we can find single element or all elements. So we can refer it by prefix. So here we have get element by and get all element by. So, and here query by, query all by, by, find all by. And next, we have the suffix function. So it's getting matched like get by role, get by label, get all by role, get all by label text. So these are the functions. All the functions here are not available. So you can just browse in with on the Jest documentation for getting more functions. Next, we have an user interaction events, user event library. For, as we have seen, for executing a function or for checking whether that particular button is clicked or not, we have an user event library. It's a companion library for testing the testing library. It dispatches dispatches the events if the user interaction took place in a browser. It is recommended way to test whether user interaction with React testing library. So here are the some events which we have: on hover, on click, on double click, on unhover, and triple click. Next, now we have advantages of using Jest. So using Jest, testing is essential for software development in in order to assure the quality of and detect the errors. So Jest helps us to ensure the quality of the code and whether it's getting executed fast. And next, we have automated testing is more efficient than human testing and can detect problems sooner in development process. So in comparison with the manual testing, automated testing is more efficient, gives faster feedback, and it helps us to improve code coverage. Next, as you know, Jest is a popular JavaScript library package in particularly for unit testing in React. Unit testing is an important section in the part of test pyramid since its focuses on evaluating individual component in isolation. So if your individual components are tested well, you can predict that it will go well. Yeah, I'm not saying that it will get executed fully. Next, just simplifies unit testing in React by providing straight APIs, built-in mocking and coverage report, and test execution. As we have seen in the demo, it provides the code coverage, reporting, and text execution. Next, we have limitations using Jest. So first limitation is that it has so lower execution for larger projects. So if we have a larger projects, it may take time to execute all the test cases and may means it has slower execution. Next, limited support for browser testing. So just doesn't provide, means currently it's not providing the browser specific testing. Next, integration challenges with other testing tools. So just we can face the challenges while you integrating other testing libraries like Mocha, etc. Next, increasing memory consumption. So as you have seen in earlier, when we run an test, it's uh, it's get executed in watch mode, and if we change in the file, make any change in the file, it gets executed again. It may increase the memory execution. So that's it from my side. Further information, I would call upon Nadeem.
Yes, thank you, Sanket, for the implementation explanation. You can change the slide. Yeah, so first of all, let me tell you guys, this is not the end of this session. As I have already told you that we have the quiz session 2. So let's continue with this Q&A session. So if you guys have any question related to the testing and the unit testing, or if you guys have any question related to the topic, you can just put your question in the Q&A session. Guys, if you have any question, you can put your question in the chat section.
So, Nadeem, we got two questions in the chat section, Q&A section. You can just
Yeah. Can generate the test result file. Yes, it generate the test result file. Uh, I guess Sanket, you can share your screen and show that test coverage file,
Sure.
which is generated in the folder structure. Yeah. So Rohit, you can see here that this test coverage file is generated. Okay, so it is get generated automatically. You don't have to generate this file. When you execute the npm run test command, it will automatically get generated. The next question is how to overcome jest implementations. Oh, okay, so all the limitation of jest is related when actually our application grows. So when we have the n number of test cases, so all the limitation is for that only. Okay, so for get rid of all the limitations, what we can do that we can write our unit test cases in the more efficient way and write the test cases only for those for functions and for only for those component which is required. As I've already told you, I have mentioned some points that what we should not test while testing our application, so we have to take care about all those things. So I guess this is the only way to get rid of the limitation of jest that we have mentioned.
we have one more question.
uh, yeah, is there any solution for making the testing process faster, as you told that just takes some time for the larger project? uh, okay. Yeah, as I already told you, the solution is only, I guess, that I have told you, I have mentioned some points that what we should not test while writing the test cases. So if we avoid those things and only write the test cases for the component which is required, I think this thing can make the testing process faster. Okay, any other question, guys? If there is no question, then we can go ahead. Okay, okay. Thank you for your question, guys. So this is the code grip. So let me tell you about what is code grip. Okay, so code grip is a tool which is made for writing the clean code, and it basically help us to find a duplication percentage, and it also suggests us the solution, and also it shows the resolution time and many more. So it's basically the analysis tool. And one of the main advantage of code grip is that every time you make a commit or whenever your PR get merged, it will automatically generate the testing report for you. And you can also integrate the code grip with the Slack so that you can easily access all those, or you can easily access the report. So here in the diagram itself, you can see some of the key feature of code grip. So identity code duplication, find security vulnerabilities, identity code smells, major code coverage, then automated reviews. Yeah, so this is about the code grip. Change the slide. Yeah, so here is a list of the current opportunities available at Mindbowser. So if you guys are interested, so you can visit our career portal and apply there. You can visit our career portal link, which is shared in the chat section. Okay, so thank you guys. So if you guys have any further queries, so you can contact us. So this is our email IDs. Thank you for joining me.